Remember when make, do, amend was more than just a phrase? It was a way of life, a practical approach to living that encouraged resourcefulness, thrift, and a deep respect for the things we owned. Whether it was patching up a worn pair of jeans, tinkering with a car engine to keep it running, or refurbishing a piece of machinery, there was a time when people took pride in fixing things rather than throwing them away. But today, in the demolition and construction equipment sector and beyond, that mindset seems to be fading into history. Let's start with the world we're actually in, the demolition and construction equipment sector. In the past, if a machine broke down, the first thought wasn't to replace it, it was to repair it, to make it last. An excavator, dozer, or wheel loader was seen as an investment, a piece of equipment that, with the right care, could serve you well for decades. And when the parts wore out, you didn't scrap the machine, you repaired or remanufactured those parts. Today, that's become less common. We live in a throwaway society where the instinct to replace rather than repair has taken hold. When a machine starts showing its age, many companies simply look to trade it in for a newer model. There's a growing perception that new is always better and that anything old is obsolete. But what does that mean for the environment? And are we really getting better value for money? Take remanufacturing, for example. It's a practice that obviously is alive and well, but it's often overshadowed by the push for new machines. Yet remanufacturing is a brilliant way to extend the life of equipment, reduce waste, and cut costs. It's also a far more sustainable option than constantly buying new. By remanufacturing components, we're not just saving money, we're also conserving raw materials, reducing energy consumption, and minimizing the environmental impact of manufacturing new parts from scratch. And let's not forget about the skills involved. The ability to diagnose a problem, take something apart, and put it back together again so it works as good as new, that's a craft, one that deserves to be valued and preserved. But the decline of make, do, amend isn't just limited to our. Look at how we treat our cars. There was a time when most drivers had at least a basic understanding of how their vehicles worked. People would spend weekends under the bonnet, changing the oil, replacing spark plugs, or fixing a dodgy exhaust. These days, cars are so packed with electronics and specialized components that many people wouldn't dream of fixing them themselves. Instead, we hand over our keys to a garage, or worse still, consider trading in our vehicle for a new one at the first sign of trouble. This shift has been driven by several key factors. For one, cars have become more complex. But there's also a cultural shift at play where convenience trumps self reliance. Why spend time fixing something when you can just replace it? But this convenience comes at a cost, not just to our wallets, but also to the environment. Every time we choose to replace rather than repair, we're contributing to a cycle of waste and consumption that is simply unsustainable. Think about the fashion industry, which has largely taken throwaway culture to its absolute extreme. Fast fashion has made clothing so cheap and accessible that many people see it as disposable. If a shirt tears or a button pops off, it's often easier to toss it out and buy something new rather than take the time to mend it. It doesn't have to be this way. We can bring back the mindset of make, do, amend, not just as a nostalgic nod to the past, but as a necessary shift towards a more sustainable future. It starts with changing how we think about things we own, from our clothes to our cars to our construction equipment. Instead of seeing them as something disposable, we need to see them as valuable resources worth maintaining and preserving. In the demolition and construction equipment sector, that means prioritizing maintenance and repair over replacement. It means investing in remanufacturing, not just as a cost saving exercise, but as a commitment to sustainability. It means recognizing the value of the skilled labor involved in repairing and refurbishing equipment and ensuring that those skills are passed down to the next generation. It means taking a step back from the throwaway culture that has become so all pervasive. It means learning to sew a button, change a tire, or fix a leaky tap. It means thinking twice before we throw something out and asking ourselves if it can be repaired or repurposed instead. Ultimately, bringing back make, do, amend is about more than just fixing things. It's about fostering a mindset of sustainability, resourcefulness, and respect for the environment. It's about recognizing that things we own have a value beyond their price tags and that taking care of them is not just good for our wallets, but it's good for the planet as well. In a world where the pressure to consume is constant, it might seem easier to take the path of least resistance, to buy new rather than repair, replace, or remanufacture. But if we're absolutely serious about safeguarding the environment, we need to rethink that approach. We need to remember the value of making do and mending, of fixing what's broken and preserving what is still fundamentally good. Because in the end, the things we own aren't just disposable items, they're part of a larger ecosystem, one that we have a responsibility to protect. By embracing a make do amend mentality, we're not just preserving the past, we're actually investing in a sustainable future.